Welcome back to another Spirit Island video. In this video, we'll be talking about Many Minds as power cards. This is the second video in my Many Minds playthrough, I guess, Spirit Guide, where we will go through different generic videos regarding Many Minds strategy, and then we'll cover some games. So, with that being said, let's look at the different power cards. So, Many Minds has 5 uniques, which is pretty different. Most spirits only start the game with 4. And Many Minds is one of the few spirits that gets to kind of break that mold. And I actually think it works perfectly on the spirit. It's just, as I said in the previous video, a very well-designed spirit. And the extra card really allows for some interesting choices in that mid game. So the first card here is Ever Multiplying Swarm. And this card is 0 range. It costs 1 energy. It's a slow power, and it adds 2 beasts. The elements are fire, earth, and animal, and I love the artwork on this thing. Basically, this is the card that's going to kind of power you up. It's going to allow you to add some beasts so that you can utilize your right, left innate, as well as both of your uniques here and here. Most games, I'm only going to be playing Ever Multiplying Swarm between 1 and 2 times. I never go over that 2 times just because it's just, you never really have enough time to do that. The reason for that, well, I'll talk more about it in the opening, but usually you play it turn 1, and then you'll play it around turn 4 or 5, and then by the time you have enough time to play it again, it's around turn 7, 8, and by then the game is usually over with. Another reason why you don't want to play this card that often is because it lacks that air, which is really important for both of your innates. So allowing yourself, or not allowing, but just playing it turn 1 is so big because you're not planning on hitting your innates turn 1. So it's a great off turn to just play this card, and then you try to squeeze it in one more time. The next 2 cards is Dreadful Tide of Scouring Flesh, which is a moon, air, water animal. It's a 0 cost. It's fast, Sacred Site. You must target a land that has 2 beasts. It says remove up to half, rounded down, of beasts in target land. For each beast removed, you get 2 fear and skip 1 action. This card is insane. Very powerful, allows you to skip multiple actions in the land. It also could be used as a fear bomb in the late game, because a lot of times you'll have maybe like 6, 7, maybe 8 beasts in the land. And this card, you can kind of just throw all of your beasts, gather them all up into one land, and then remove half of them, basically allowing yourself to generate just a massive amounts of fear. It also allows you to have this moon element, which is a very nice moon flex. Actually, before I continue talking about that, let's look back at Ever Multiplying Swarm. Having secondary elements of fire and earth, very nice elemental flex, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. Okay, so Dreadful Tide. Really what makes this card tick is the water here, though. It's an air water animal, and that's critical to hitting the second threshold of your left innate. So you'll see in my next video, my third video in the guide, I'll talk about openings, but basically you're going to want to alternate your turns with these cards, where you'll play one of these cards one turn and you'll play the other one the other turn, such that you can always be hitting the second tier of the innate, so that you can always move the beasts to where you need them to go. Looking at the next card here, we have Boone of Swarming Bedevilment. It's a 0 cost card. It's an air water animal. It's target another. For the rest of this turn, each of Spirit's presence grants defend 1 in its land. Target Spirit may push up to 1 of their presence. This card is very strong. It's one of the best support cards in the game. First, the fact that it gives target Spirit defend 1 for each presence in its lands is just so powerful. A lot of times with proper setup, and that's the one thing with this card, there needs to be a lot of communication between both players or multiple players on the board, such that players can set up their presence properly to defend multiple lands with this card. In solo, this card breaks Many Minds in half. You'll see myself, when I do my solo games, I'll never take this card for myself, just because Many Minds doesn't need extra defend. It can get by without it, and this card just hyper. It just gives Many Minds basically an infinite defend, where it pretty much will never blight. The last thing about this card is it gives you a push of presence, and that's huge for spirits. some spirits that are very static, like stone, earth. These are spirits that rarely move presence, and this is going to be huge for them. In addition, in the new expansion, the NI expansion, we have a new mechanic called Incarnas, and Incarnas count as presence, and a lot of times the position of the Incarna allows that player to do different things, and this effect allows that player to essentially move that Incarna for free, which a lot of times is a huge benefit for them because whenever they move that Incarna, it usually costs them something. And this is essentially, hey, you could kind of reposition that Incarna a little bit more. So this is a very strong card. And also it has that air, water, animal. So once again, it hits that second threshold of your left innate. That's so important. Okay, and the last two cards, we have Guide the Feathered Wings and Pursue with Scratches. So Guide, it is a sun, air, animal. It's a 0 cost, fast, 1 range power. Really important that this is sun. This sun flex allows you to threshold a lot of powerful majors. Really, both of these cards is very important. Both that sun and that animal, and we're going to talk about that in a little bit. So Guide, it allows you to move a beast up to 2 lands, and as it moves, it can carry 2 Dahan. Basically, this card is going to be used to shuffle Dahan around wherever you need them to go. And since your right innate is a defensive innate, you'll try to combo Guide to set up Dahan so they can properly counterattack with this right innate. Pursue, it's a 0 cost sun, fire, air, and animal. It's a fast 2 range ability that must target a land with beasts. And it says 1 fear, and then for each beast past the first, push 1. So it's a force push. 1 explorer town. And so basically, if you have a land, go up to the board here. If you have a land here with 2 beasts, I can play Pursue on that land to push. Since I have 2 beasts, it says push 1 for each beast past the first, push 1. So because I have 2 beasts, I only can push 1 thing. Now, if I have a sacred site here, I now have 3 beasts where now I can push 2 things if I'd like, or I can choose to have this sacred site not count as a beast for the purpose of this action, and I can only push 1 thing. Looking at some of the other cards, so let's look at Guide. I'm going to now execute Guide and kind of show how this plays out. It says move up to 1 beast up to 2 lands as it moves, carrying 2 Dahan. So I can, for instance, move a presence to the mountain, picking up this Dahan, moving it to the jungle, dropping that Dahan off into the jungle here. Let's say I do this. I can move this Dahan. Let's say I have a presence here. I can move the presence here to B5 and then to B1, carrying this Dahan into B1. And that's a way where you can kind of drop off Dahan or move Dahan around. Dreadful Tide, really important. You must target a land with 2 beasts. So if I'm using Dreadful Tide here on B5, there's 3 beasts, so I can target that land. Now let's say I have 3 beasts and a sacred site. I can still target that land with Dreadful Tide, and it says remove up to half of beasts in target land. So I could choose to either have this land count as having 4 beasts, and I can remove 2 beasts to skip 2 actions, or I can have my sacred site not count as a beast. There will only be 3 beasts there, so I can remove 1 beast to only get 2 fear and skip 1 action. And that's kind of reinforcing what I mentioned in the previous video, where you can have your sacred sites count as beasts when you would like to, or when you don't want them to be counting as beasts. Let's now look at some event cards here. I have a bunch of different ones. Let's look at these top ones, and these are the beast damage effects. I'm just going to hover over these. Beast damage, maybe beast effects. I also have a thorough conjunction. I'll talk about that in a second. Each beast destroys. Beast damage. Each beast generates fear. This one's just insane. The amount of fear I've generate with this card, as many minds, it's hilarious. And then beast push. I don't know the exact numbers, and I'll have a link to Ray's Many Minds guide in these videos, but he does the math on like the percent of positive beast event. I believe it's like 40 something percent that you're gonna get some sort of beast damage. Not sure the exact numbers, but a lot of times when you're playing Many Minds is you want to play around beast damage. Remember, every sacred site you have can count as a beast. So if you have, for instance, this sands building, you may want to maneuver some beasts into the sands because if you get beast damage, you kill that explorer and that will put you massively ahead. It's also one of my favorite things about playing mini mines. It's just very rewarding and interesting because it allows an extra piece to the puzzle um, that a lot of spirits don't really get to play with. I have Ethereal Conjunction up here. I consider this a very positive event, mainly because of that bottom part. It says seek to control it through it exhausts you. And it says you choose a non-major, put it into play, and then discard all of your other cards, and then you get to forget that card. I like this card a lot because, like I said earlier, I like to play Multiplying Swarm once and then maybe twice. Sometimes when this card pops up, you may have Ever Multiplying Swarm in discard, and your hand may be empty, and this may allow you to immediately play the card and then forget it. Basically gives you 2 beasts for free because you probably wouldn't have played this card again. Now, of course, there's that negative to discarding your hand, but there are some cases where you can kind of squeeze that in and make good use of it. And actually, before I continue talking about the rest of the events, let's go over here, and I forgot to talk about this. And this is Many Minds' elemental spread. And Many Minds has 17 elements across its 5 cards, which is one of the highest among all current spirits. Usually spirits are around, I believe it's like 10 to 12. I can't remember. At one point, I counted through everything. Now, granted, Many Minds has a 5th card, so it's going to have inflated elements, but that's just something to point out. And that's going to matter for this next part over here when I talk about more events. And this is that elemental breakdown. We have the 2 Sun, and that's both on Pursue as well as Guide. We have the 1 Moon on Dreadful Tide. We have the 2 Water on both Tide and Bedevilment. 4 of our miners, or not 4 of our uniques have that air. All of them have animal. You have 2 with fire, both Swarm and Pursue, and 1 has earth, and that's Swarm. You'll notice we're missing 1 element type, and that is plant. We have 0 plant across our cards, which sucks. Plant is actually my favorite element, so whenever I pick up this spirit, I just know I'm going to be playing with cards that I'm not used to picking up and cards that I usually don't play with, which is a pretty fun experience for myself. In addition, you have this additional air, additional animal, and those are tied to your tracks. So you have a total of 19 elements you have access to, which is just immense. Okay, just looking at this part here. Now, we talked about all those elements, and this is where we can really cash in. Years of Little Rain, Sacred Sites under threat, well, mainly because the Beast Fear and the Spirit Speakers, but the fire damage is also pretty great from Guide Them Yourselves. Rising Interest, Missionaries, and New Species. So these are all different events that we very easily can pay for just by forgetting certain cards or discarding, or maybe we have them in play, plus we have some energy and we can kind of pay for it. So the fact that you have such a large elemental spread and a lot of card drafts means you're able to really pay for these events. You'll notice I don't have the Beast event up here, and that's because the Beast event is actually really bad for Many Minds, and we'll talk about that in a second here. Okay, looking down here, these are 8 events that I kind of rate to be pretty poor for Many Minds. The first one, Relentless Optimism. Really, it's Cultures Mix and Clash and Foreign Diseases. Cultures Mix and Clash, a lot of times Many Minds has a lot of buildings on their board, and they will outnumber your Dahan, which means you lose a Dahan. And then Foreign Diseases plops down a disease, killing a second Dahan. So this card kills 2 of your Dahan. It's just pretty insane. I have interesting discoveries, mainly for a couple reasons. The first thing is you have a sacred site. A lot of times you'll have multiple. And there are some matchups like France and Russia where this card Force gathers an explorer and then adds an explorer to that land. And that can, into Russia, France, that could just be pretty devastating, causing like multiple builds or extra town builds, and then or an instant ravage like against Russia. In addition, Many Minds' defend in the early game, that defend 2, lines up pretty poorly against an explorer town. And anything that increases damage is going to cause you to blight. That's something to keep that in mind. The next one here, this is a new event in the Nature's Incarnate expansion. It says secure the settled territory. It's a force beast destroy, and I hate beast destroy effects, and this is just another one that they are adding to the deck. So losing beasts on a beast spirit is a feel bad. I have this card because of Strange Tales. Beast attack is really nice and it makes up for this card. But Strange Tales, it says after advancing invader cards, you add an explorer to each land with sacred sites. A lot of times you're going to have 3, 4 sacred sites. In this card, well, actually, it's stage 1, so I think the most you'll have is 2 to 3 sacred sites, I believe. Um, and so this is going to add a bunch of explorers. Once again, France, Russia can be pretty painful. I have hardworking settlers here, and it's mainly for that top part where it says immediately ravage in the land with the most invaders that matches the ravage card. And you'll notice that that can be very painful because sometimes we'll be using Dreadful Tide. We'll only skip a land once. You'll skip the ravage once, and then this card says, oh yeah, ravage there again. So a lot of times this card can bleed through your Dreadful Tide skip. And that's most notably, you'll notice that in Habsburg, where that might cause an additional loss condition, or Sweden, which will cause us a lot of blight, and then a mining rush. Then we have, like I said, Life's Balance Tilts. This is the animal payment event, and this card is just pretty painful. A lot of times you always want to pick top on this card, especially in multiplayer, and that's going to kill your beast. It's going to add a blight, and then Dahan will have -1 health, and a lot of times your damage is just slightly under. Like I said, you have defend 2 against 3 damage, or you'll have defend 4 against 5 damage. And this will, as a result, cause one of your Dahan to die, likely, because if you'll have Dahan in the land for a proper counter attack. Now, if you choose the bottom part isn't terrible for you because you can easily pay for it. But like I said, the rest of the group, the rest of the players are not going to want to pay for this card. I have Remnants up here mainly for that hunting parties. It says for each land with beasts and cities, 1 fear, destroy a beast. I've had this card flipped into some England games in the mid game, and I've lost 3, sometimes 4 beasts from it. And yeah, it's just a feel bad. It's like, well, lose a bunch of beasts and just get some fear. It's just not fun. Lastly, we have Thriving Trade. This card can edge case players a lot, especially on the coast. You may be, for instance, defending your B2, and then Thriving Trade comes by, drops a city there, basically increasing the damage on that land by 3. Then it adds a disease to that land, killing your Dahan, and then yeah, and then this will blight, killing the rest of your Dahan. So this gets a lot of players. Many Minds is just another spirit that gets screwed by this card. Okay, I think that's it talking about events. Let's look at minors. So I have a bunch of minors and some majors that we're going to talk about now. And the minors are in no particular order. There's also a lot of other minors that are great for the spirit. I just grabbed some that stuck out of my mind. So you're really looking for 0-cost cards, and also Twin Days is always amazing. But yeah, 0-cost cards, very strong on a spirit that has 5 plays. This row I have very strong utility cards. Call to Trade, just another skip effect, very strong. It also has air. Spur has air, fire, sun, extra plays. Dire Metamorphosis, air animal, adds beasts. It's just a very solid card. Hazards, it's a fast beast add that's 0 cost. Lure, it's a fast disruption, 0 cost, has air. Scour the land, for 3 air, you can make it fast, and it's a destroy all explorers and 3 towns. It's great into France, it's great into Russia. It's okay into England, but yeah, this card can be a lifesaver on many minds. I think I just have, like, this is just a second column of just great cards that are a perfect element for us. Veil, fast Dahan movement, it's on element. Each Dahan deals 1 damage to a different invader. Great into Russia, France. Here there be monsters, lots of fear, push, it's free, on element. On element, so this is called Isolation, it's on element, Dahan push, or I can push things per Dahan. Ever Twisting Trail, Another on element card, gathering explorers, pushing explorers. It also isolates. Swarming wasps, another beast add, or it's a beast push. It's also on element, fire, air, animal. Tormenting Flies. This is one of the weaker cards up here. I just put it up there because it's on element. I think a lot of times I pass this up as many minds, but there's a reason why it's up here, and I'll talk about that when we get to the majors. But yeah, it's probably the weakest miner I have up here. Bird's Cry Warning, another on element card, pushing Dahan. Can also prevent Dahan from dying. I have a nice set of great defense. All defense are great on many mines. These are just some that stick out. We have Sap, defend 5/0. If you have air, it has +1 range. Carapace Land, another on element card, defend 3. Kuldegard on element, defend 1 per Dahan, comes with Dahan movement. Quicken, another on element card. It's very easy for us to move our presence around because remember, our presence count as beasts and they're also sacred sites, so it's very easy to set up a nice defend 10. Guardian Serpent on element, it adds beasts and it's a defend. It's a great card. Mez, it's very similar to Sap. It's a nice, basically, defend. It also has that water animal, which is huge, and I'll talk about that when we get to sea monsters. Down here are the only 3 cards in the deck that have the air, water, and animal. We have Rain of Blood, Scream Disease, and Elemental Boone. And that's really important for hitting our left innate. Remember how we talked about how we want to alternate between Dreadful Tide and Boone? This gives us 3 more cards that can allow us to hit that left innate quite easily on a low card play. So that's Elemental Boone, Scream Disease, and Rain of Blood. I actually really love Rain of Blood on this spirit. It's usually just 3 more fear on a spirit that's already top heavy with fear. And this just allows you to kind of just hyper accelerate that fear deck. I really wish Scream Disease could target yourself. It would make this card significantly better. Or maybe have it, if it costs 0, I would actually prefer that. The 1 cost really, I mean, this card's not very good. But the fact that it costs 1, it makes it very hard for many minds to play it. Once again, there's plenty of other miners that will also work for many minds. Many minds loves the miner deck. I've just picked out some that just stood out when I was flying through it earlier today. Okay, let's look at some majors here. So I have the majors like put into, was it 4 different categories? This is like the category of majors that are just pretty busted on many minds. Like if you pick up these cards in the top category, you're just gonna destroy the invaders. Let's start off. We have Insatiable Swarm. It's add a blight, add some beasts, gather some beasts, lots of fear, lots of damage. The fear on this card is not capped. So if you gather in like 8 beasts, you'll get 8 fear on this thing. Thresholding this is very easy on many minds, and a lot of times this card will generate, gosh, like 20, 30 fear a turn. Yes, you're adding blight, but it doesn't matter when you just win the game in 1 or 2 turns while playing this. Yeah, just a very busted card on many minds. Power Storm. Power Storm is Power Storm. Very, very strong card. But really, it's the fact that you can threshold this on, I think, 2 plays. Sun, Fire, and Air. And oh, look, remember how I mentioned we have 2 cards? Well, only 1 that has Sun, Fire, but you have 2 with Sun, Air. So with playing Pursue plus Power Storm, and you can instant threshold this card. Bargains. This is one of the new majors from the Nature's Incarnate expansion. It's not, I mean, it's easy. I shouldn't say easy. It's possible to threshold this card. You do need to be playing your Earth card as well as your Water card. And you need that top air. So you basically need the air as well as 3 plays, and then you can threshold it. Oh, I guess that is pretty easy now that I think about it. But yes, this card is pretty strong. If you threshold it, it's a prolif. But really, just creating portals on the board can be very powerful for a lot of spirits. I mean, you're also a control spirit, so permanently creating 2 portals on your board allows you to kind of funnel invaders into other lands. Voice of Command, just like Power Storm, we have plenty of Sun cards, which makes this a very easy threshold. Voice of Command is a Russia killer, a France killer, just very, very good card. Sea Monsters. This is one of Many Minds' namesake, and Many Minds is one of the few spirits in the game that can threshold this card without any help. and that would be Many Minds, as well as both Bedevil and Dreadful Tide. Basically, you just need a bunch of water cards as well as this card. When you play sea monsters on Many Minds, this basically wins the game, and it's one of the reasons why Many Minds is the one of the best spirits in the game. Is if anybody picks this card up, Many Minds can easily maneuver beasts to that player's coast. That player throws a sea monsters, you get 8 fear, you obliterate the coastal land, and then if they can somehow threshold it, you get to do it again. And that's kind of why I put Sap and Mez up here. They're both water animals, so that just gives you more cards that can threshold sea monsters. Now, you really still want air, which is why playing Bedevil and Dreadful Tide is so important, because then you'll also be able to maneuver beasts around with that left innate, and as well as that get that defend via the right innate. The next row, let's start off with Pent-up. It has the animal, but really it's that removing a ton of beasts to generate a lot of fear and damage. Very similar to Insatiable, you can kind of fear bomb with this card. Infestation, it's another skip. It's a little bit harder to threshold. By that, I mean that you need to have that earth, and a lot of times you want to forget Ever Multiplying Swarm when you pick up a major. So you really don't have that earth card, but it's still a pretty solid pickup. I mean, you can generate a ton of fear. You're still adding beasts with this card. Weave, this is a mainly you're picking this card because it has the air, and you'll be able to get that 4 air threshold, allowing you to remove invaders and isolate the land and getting 2 fear. This card you can use to condense a lot of your problems. A lot of times Many Minds will have 1 or 2 problem lands across their board. Well, I drew 3 circles, but you get the point. And Weave allows you to basically kind of combine 2 problems into 1 land, and then during time passes, you can kind of just condense everything into that single land. We then have Trees and Stones, just solid Dahan defend and damage, as well as Vigor. Once again, I said you have 2 Sun cards, so this is a instant threshold on us. We also have Dahan movement, so it's very easy to set this card up. Rapid Wings, another instant threshold. It's on element. Tiger's Hunting, another instant threshold, because like I said, we have the Sun from the 2 cards, as well as the Moon from Dreadful Tide. So on 3 card plays, we can threshold this thing, and we have easy beast movement so that we can easily destroy a ton of invaders in multiple lands. Forest of Living Obsidian. I put this card here. I mean, it's completely off element. Well, we actually do have the Fire Earth, so we just need another Earth card, and we also have the Sun Fire. So if we get 1 more Earth card and 4 plays, we can threshold this. Very unlikely, but I bet it's possible. But the reason why this card is here is we have a ton of beast movement via that left innate, and once again, our sacred sites count as beasts, so we can move our sacred sites and easily set up a strong Forest of Living Obsidian. Paralyzing Fright. Getting the 3 Earth is difficult, but I mean, it's 8 fear, and you get to skip everything. Flocking. This is one of the new Nature's Incarnate majors. This card is very powerful on Many Minds, and mainly, if you look, it has that water, and that water is critical. Remember how I said we need that air-water animal to hit that left innate? Well, this is a major that has it. It is difficult to threshold because you need that extra plant, and that's why I pointed out above Rot Flies and Ever-Twisting Trail, because when you pick up one of these cards, you can instant threshold Flocking. But yes, Flocking, excellent major on Many Minds. I actually think Flow Like Water, a very underrated major, is one of the best majors in the game for Many Minds, and that's because this is an instant threshold for us, and for 2 energy, you get to push 6 things, 2 cities, 2 towns, and 2 explorers. Very easily allows us to kind of pile up stuff into a single land. We have Sleep and Never Waken, another on element air animal card. It's a little bit harder to threshold because we're missing that 3rd moon, but it's just the fact that we're very close to thresholding this, and this card is a Russia killer, makes this card quite good on us. Instruments, it's an instant threshold on us. We just need 4 plays because we need the 4 sun. But Instruments is one of the best majors in the game, And the fact that we can threshold it without needing any extra cards is really good. I actually think we need one more sun. Yeah, we need one more sun, but you'll have plenty of drafts to find that sun. Unleash a torrent of the self's own essence. It's a 2 sun, 3 fire. Another card that we instant threshold with pursue plus ever multiplying swarm. And this card could just obliterate lands. So these are those majors I have up here that are just they completely. If you pick them up with many minds, you'll just completely dominate. This next section, these are just solid majors. I mean, some of them might be up here in the top tier. I just kind of threw together just good majors. I'm not going to go through all of them because that would take too long. But like dissolve, very easy threshold on us. Bargains, it's not an easy threshold, but quite good on us as well. Jungle Hungers is great. Indom, Irresistible Call, we can easy threshold sweep. Walls, Angry Bears, easy threshold as well. Winds of Rust, it is that tri-element just like Flocking. And it's easy, well, I shouldn't say easy threshold. Having to get 3 water is fairly challenging because then we have to play winds as well as both Bedevil and Dreadful Tide, and you usually don't want to do that. But these are just very solid cards. I'm not sad if I see any of these in my drafts. Pretty funny to point out that Settle into the Hunting Ground is actually pretty solid on many minds. They made it look like it's a Fangs card, but Fangs doesn't have many presence. However, we do have a lot of our presence. So it's very easy to gather in 3, 4 sacred sites, play this card, and they all count as bad lands. And that's like 8 bad lands, and then you get to do 2 damage, assuming you have the plant, and it's just completely devastate a land. Let's see. Pyro is always a great card. Thickets is great. Okay, next tier. These are cards that I sometimes pick up, or I maybe can see an argument for. Fragments, I mean, just a complete reset on a land. It's a new Nature's Incarnate card. 7 energy makes it very difficult for us to play it, but there are some arguments where I think I would play it. I was looking at this card, Wounded Wilds, and I rarely see this card. And then I looked at it, I was like, I wonder if this is playable on many minds. Maybe. I mean, the biggest problem is we don't really have much blight, but it does get to gather 2 beasts. It adds badlands. I don't know. It seems fun. Maybe one day I'll get to make this work. Tsunami, fairly difficult to threshold on us, but we can possibly make it work. Talents is fairly easy, but Talents is also quite overcosted. Vanish and Savage, these cards definitely would get more play than the other 4 above, but I never can really make this card work Savage. Usually the games where I get majors, this isn't the card that I want to be picking up. Same with Vanish Softly. I mean, this card, it just seems pretty medium. I think there's just a lot of better drafts that I could grab. Blood Rack is a easy threshold for us, but it takes a couple turns for us to really get this card going. I think we'd have to play this card maybe 2, 3 times before we really can get a lot of value. And I think by then I'd rather just try to look for a major that's up here again. We have Smothering Infestation, Utter a Curse, and Spill Bitterness. I rarely see myself picking these cards up. I mean, maybe I can make them work, but like we don't have much blight for Utter a Curse. Spill Bitterness costs 5 energy, completely off element. And then, yeah, Infestation, completely off element too. Maybe if I can get to threshold this card, I can see an argument versus like Russia or France. The final category here, these are majors that I don't think I'll ever pick up on many minds, like ever. Draw Towards a Consuming Void, Cast Down Volcanic, Fire and Flood. You just don't have the energy to play these cards. Manifest, Dream, or I shouldn't say energy. It's just usually you have around like 6 to 8 energy, so you could play it once, but like you'd rather just draft something up here that you could get to play like 2 to 3 times, or you'd be able to play these cards once, and it's usually just not good enough. I think if these cards had some elements that would match Many Minds, maybe Many Minds would make work, but they're just too expensive. Like Death Falls, I mean, it's just not good. I mean, it's not, maybe it might be up in this category, but just a lot of times it's just a little bit, it's overcost. It just doesn't do enough. Transform is bad. Terrifying Nightmares is bad. Twisted Flowers is pretty bad as well. Just too expensive. Um, Maybe some of these cards can be up a tier, but really, I don't see myself ever really picking any of these cards. Focus, Land Thresh is definitely not those. Grant Hatred, one of the worst majors in the entire deck. Um, but yeah, maybe Accelerated Route I could probably pull up here, and same with Twisted Flowers. But don't get too caught up in the rankings here. I'm just kind of trying to show you guys visually what I'm looking for when I pick up majors. I believe there's a couple other majors that are coming out in the new expansion that Many Minds likes. I'm not sure which category they go in, but once again, just more majors that synergize with the kit. So this video was a little bit longer, but like I said in the previous video, I'm trying to extend the length, trying to cover more content, and trying to do more of a comprehensive guide. So if you like this video, like, subscribe for more content. I'll see you guys in the next video.